Welcome, everyone. Please introduce yourselves in the chat with your name, pronouns, organizational affiliation. I'm Sabrina Roach. I'm with Washington State University Extension. I work on digital equity. And this is Kayla Wells-Yoakum, County Director with WSU Okanagan Extension. She's working in the meeting logistics. You can chat her directly if you have any technical difficulties. Well, today we are going over components of the guide to the executive summary. The end is in sight. We've got the Learn, Design, Apply team, Annie Sersky and Brooke McCallum. Annie, am I saying your last name correctly? Sersky, got it. They'll be walking through that template of the executive summary based on worksheet 18 and the compiled action plans that will help structure the final draft plans that get submitted to the Washington State Broadband office. So folks are still coming in. So the templates include some guidance and examples on how to incorporate the content from the worksheets and data collection efforts. And ultimately, it provides the template to synthesize your efforts. Nick Pappin from WSU Extension will provide a demonstration of some new data in the maps that will help identify project areas. And possibly we'll be talking a little bit about the data dictionary, at least how to find it. So we also plan on leaving time for questions, strategy sharing, breaking out into small groups of like 3 or so you can have deeper discussions and put some notes in the collaborative note-taking document. Okay, Annie and Brooke.
Hello, everyone. I think Annie is going to share her screen here and we'll dive into things. So we're really excited to share with you this document today. It's been a long time coming. And essentially what this executive summary / broadband and digital equity local action plan template is, as Sabrina was saying, is a place where all your worksheets all the information and data from your worksheets and from the surveys you've been sending out will get compiled and create a plan. And it's essentially a Google Doc, and it will be available in each BAT and tribes folder is actually available now. And it will be facilitated and advised by your regional coordinator. So if you're itching to get started on it, then we highly recommend you reach out to your regional coordinator to work with them and make sure you have a clear plan on how to tackle it and go forward. Some important things to know about it is it's definitely, even though has a deadline, it is a draft plan, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And it's going to be used to inform WSBO's 5-year state plan. So don't think of it as an actual like grant application or anything like that. And there are no word or page limitations, and you're also welcome to attach any supplementation or add anything in here that isn't in here. As far as Dustin shared, like it's really, we want to make sure everybody has their voice in it, the community's voice in it. So feel free to add any sort of things that will help with that. And let's see. Yeah, and you can, if you have like already identified project areas, you can include that in here as well, but not a requirement. And one thing we also recommend as a fun tip is to read through it all and then notice if there's anything missing. So kind of working backwards from it to see, what data is missing and what information you want to be collecting in these last few weeks. And as you probably already know, the deadline for it is June 14th. So that is coming up quickly. And also, just to be clear, I don't think everyone on this call will necessarily have access to this document. It'll really be the regional coordinators and the designated people in the BATs and tribes who are working on this. I don't think everyone in like an entire BAT is not going to be all in this document. But we wanted you to have the awareness that this exists, and this is like the end product and what will be submitted on June 14th. So there's a vision there for you to see. So Annie, I'll pass it over to you to dive into it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brooke. All right, I'll exit out of here. Okie doke. Here, I'll scroll up to the top. So to reiterate, if you are a BAT leader or a tribal broadband team leader, you will now see a document that looks like this in your Google Drive folder. We like to think of this as a blueprint. So if you see blue text, that's just guidance, examples, etc. from our planning team. That's all good for you to clear out as you start to formulate your own content. So blue text, blueprint is a good way to think of it. Our cover page here has much of the same kind of big picture reminders that Brooke just ran through, including, some expectations around what it should be and who's working on it. We've also included a cover page here to create some visual continuity with the workbook. Optional, feel free to apply your own local branding if you'd like. There's an introduction, an abstract section, which will allow you to kind of create a narrative, paint the picture narratively about who your county or tribe is, and some of the most important points that will come later in your plan. And then as we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of this summary and the template, you'll see we have each of the sections laid out with some guidance in blue. These sections map to the worksheet 18 you're probably familiar with in the workbook. Just instead of a checklist form, we've made it more of a template form so you can type right into the document. While we're going through this, I want to highlight a few different types of content that will make its way into this executive summary. So first is pretty simple. For our first question here, broadband base map review, this is basically going to be a quick summary of worksheet number 17, which most counties and tribes have already done as part of their normal workbook process. So really the effort here is to just go back to what you've already done, pull out the key points and make sure they're aligned with kind of where your working group has landed. The second type is similar, right? It should be, pulling from work you've already done. For example, for the local broadband asset inventory, you'll want to go into, your asset inventory effort, the surveys and outreach you've done, and then create a list of the organizations you reached out to and the assets they reported back. So just getting everything organized into one final picture here. The final group of questions is a little bit deeper and just ask a little bit more synthesis of all of the information you've collected as part of this planning effort. So one example would be here, areas where the cost of services may be too high for the average household. Now, this is a decision that will happen within each tribe or county. I believe it was kind of the main focus of the last DE workshop, and that recording's available if you want to go into depth. But what you'll see here in blue is, our advisory team, our planning team put together their heads to think of some guidance questions or considerations for you as you look at all the data you've collected and make a decision about where are the areas where cost of services might be too high. As you're kind of going through this executive summary, this is going to be a great area to engage both your regional coordinator and your advisors, just to make sure these kind of synthesis questions are really strongly written. All right, I think that's about it. Sabrina, I'd say we are open for questions. I'll stop sharing.
Annie and Brooke, there was a comment in the chat that says it would be helpful to have the blank template available on public worksheet page. And then I did receive a private message if we were sharing this template during this workshop for people to look at.
Yeah, I think I heard two parts there. So one would be a request for a blank version of the template. I think, Brooke, that's something we can take into consideration, maybe create this week as an option if folks don't want any of the guidance in there. Love that suggestion. And then the second part is for this template. So the way that we're sharing it is actually with the existing Google folders for each of the bats and the tribes. So my recommendation, if you'd like to contribute, would be to get engaged with that local regional coordinator who can loop you in. If you just want to look at the template, I think we might be able to share that, but really if you want to get your hands on there and contribute, I'd recommend going to the regional coordinators. Anything you'd add, Brooke?
Can I jump in here, Annie? I think
Yeah.
I'd say it's probably something I might be able to do it while you all answer more questions, but just make a read-only copy that we can just send out to the group right now so that they can ruminate on it if they want to spend some more time with it, and can kind of either copy it themselves if they want to play around with it, or download it if they want to use it in Word or anything like that.
Thanks for the
But for the
clarification, Dustin. Yeah.
But for the official versions, those ones will be in the drives for each bat or tribe.
And it looks like David mentioned that for the one to have on the website with the worksheets to actually have the guidance in it. So I think that we can definitely do that too, and maybe just have a PDF version. So we'll work on that.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
This is David. Just one follow-up. Just wondering then on the template, if you have any other recommendations on the size, length, or sort of constructing that, if that's going to be then folded into the summary and go to the state. Just any guidance in terms of writing that summary for 18 and all that to help feed that into the state recommendations.
Yeah, so I can jump in there. Thanks for that question, David. I think that's an important aspect of this. These in the forum that they're submitted on June 14th will be provided to the state broadband office, and Guidehouse will review them. They'll also have access to kind of like the raw responses to the worksheets as well, so that they can kind of manipulate and operationalize the cells in a way that's a little bit easier to manage than hopping through a bunch of different documents. But the kind of full plan and the executive summary here are that I think a really important opportunity to contextualize the important priorities and the unique aspects of each planning process, providing a little bit more of that narrative structure. So it's not just kind of working through a bunch of cells and spreadsheets and some like big old matrix. And I guess along those lines, one of the things that I was wanting to emphasize here is, sure, there's this standardized structure to kind of help navigate and understand these different community plans, but would also encourage any inclusion of additional documents or data that you'd like to be included in that process. So whether that's attaching or integrating previous or existing work that's happening outside of this that you'd like to point to. In some cases, that may be the attachment of a plan that was completed a few years ago. But also, even if there are priorities that don't directly align with some of the opportunities that are there. This is still a good opportunity to get those included in your plan, because these are community plans in addition to helping the state kind of craft their statewide plan. It can also be a guiding document for and a foundation for the communities moving forward. So one example of that that has come up a few times is mobile coverage, because that's not something that's really funded by BEAD, since it's focused more on fixed. But there are communities that have wanted to emphasize the lack of mobile coverage in their plan as it relates to their strategic plan as a community moving forward. Don't want to be restrictive in utilizing these templates. If there are additions that you would like to make, those are definitely encouraged. Don't want to strip out any kind of local flavor or uniqueness in this process.
Okay. No additional questions at this time. All right.
Sabrina, there was one more question in the chat.
Ah.
Martha Ford asked it, and Martha, can you let us know whether or not what Dustin just said answered your question? Her question was, as we move forward past June, have we established an update process, especially as additional federal or state grants are announced or funded?
Martha, by that question, are you asking about like a process to update the plans accordingly, or a process to provide updates about and or guidance on additional opportunities? I guess just want to understand the question a little better.
Yeah, it's a little bit in addition to some of the background information from a provider standpoint or ISP perspective that we've provided already in terms of coverage data, et cetera. As those change with additional grant, middle mile grants and those kinds of things that are going to be happening, do we have a mechanism to, update maps past the June, current deadlines, and update, other something else that comes to light that we want to make sure we include? Do we have a process to do that, is where I was going with that.
Oh, got it. Yeah. So as far as a coordinated process, I think that's still being determined, but at a community level, the maps that are available now will be maintained for each tribe and broadband action team for 18 months past the deadline. And if there are if there is additional data or shapefiles that you want plugged into the maps moving forward to support later opportunities or other opportunities, that will be possible as well. And especially with a little bit of a heads up, because I know NONET's committed to maintaining those maps beyond this current contract, and so it'll be there will be that process to update it, or alternatively, anything that is built into the map can be exported and provided to the community if that's something that you'd like to find another home for moving forward that can continue to be updated. Either way is fine, but that's kind of the plan for some of the mapping data at the moment. And then as far as centralized support and mechanisms, that's still to be determined based on funding and a variety of other factors.
Ronnie, I see that you have a question about possibly worksheet 14. Is that right?
I guess the question is in regards to the surveys that we're sending out to gather the data and the information that we need in order to complete the worksheets, as well as gather information on our digital equity plan in our outreach. I mean, I've heard from several different community institutions that are filling out this survey, and they do not feel like the question that's asked regarding whether or not they provide internet access to others other than their customer base is really giving them the opportunity to talk about the services that they do provide, or give them the opportunity about talking about the services that they provide to the populations in which they serve, which could be underserved populations, or so really trying to identify what it is that's out there and what's being done, and then what that gap is. The survey that we're asking them to fill out is not giving us that information. So there's huge gaps, and this is the tools that we're being put in front of us and that we're asked to send out, that's not giving us the information that we need. And I'm just asking, is anybody else finding that, or is it just me and my community institutions in Okanagan County?
I can jump in and say you're definitely not the only one. I've brought up that issue before and feel like I've been pigeonholed, to be honest with you. So we've tried to circumvent it a little bit and just condense the questionnaire, or condense the surveys into Word document questionnaires. And so that way, when we're planning for our county strategic plan, we're gathering the data that we need for down the line too. So we're trying to just keep that portion in-house and then provide on the Google Forms through whatever means that we can to actually get the data that has been asked of us from LDA and Guidehouse. So that's kind of what we've been doing. And that sounds like you're on a similar path to us.
Yeah, Ronnie, we're kind of in the same boat, because a lot of my institutions want to talk about like the gap of like, if they had resources, what would they provide, not what are we providing. So kind of to what Dustin was saying, where he's like, include more. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of having those conversations, those emails, those phone conversations, and documenting it. And then we're going to just include it in our report. So, tell them to fill out the survey just so it shows that we've reached out to them, and then kind of trying, and it's extra work. So, but I just feel like it's so important to try and capture what would our institutions and our nonprofits who are serving those covered populations, like our veterans and our unhoused youth, what would they do if they had the resources? What programs would they create if they had the resources? So that's how we're handling it.
Well, and I think that, we've had to adjust as well, and, again, make those phone calls and reach out to those community institutions. And, again, I'm getting the feedback from them that they're saying, if I had the opportunity to put that information in there, I would. The other issue that we're running into is that I think we're having a lot of, right now is the survey time of the year. We're getting ready, to hit the end of the biennium, and there's lots of things that are being done and people are getting surveyed out. So again, just trying to reach out and make those connections and, do that personal phone call, I think, is what we're doing to gather the information. But, I think the hard part is we're sending this out, asking to have them fill this out so that it populates these worksheets, and we have all of that documentation in there, but it's not capturing some of those key things that we
Yeah, Ronnie, thanks for flagging this. I'd be interested in getting some more insight into like the specific types of services, for example, that are being provided, and kind of some of the specifics on what those trying to fill out the forms are feeling restricted on.
I think some examples are, they have computers that are set aside for their customers to come in to access. They have tablets that businesses or that customers can come in and check out. They have, the ability to sit down and do digital navigation and teach classes to, the population base that they're serving. I mean, there's all sorts of things that people are doing in regards to digital literacy and access for the customers that they're serving. So here, I mean, those are just some examples above and beyond just them being able to provide internet to people who are not their customer base, or to the general public, and I think that those are just some of the things that it would be nice to be able to have them access Wi-Fi hotspots, I mean, just doing different things where people can come in and be able to have that connectivity and access. I guess, those are just some of the main things that I've heard people talk about. They have cell phones, or the ability to come in and do telehealth visits in their confidential space for them to come in and access healthcare consultations and those types of things.
Ronnie, would you be willing to spend a few minutes going over, because I'd like to kind of talk through this a little bit with you and your experience, because a lot of the services that you described are kind of included as some options in the digital equity asset inventory. So I kind of want to, if you don't mind, taking 15 or 30 minutes at some point to just kind of click through it and figure out where the disconnect is.
Has anyone tried filling out those worksheets like several at a time with someone in a conversation, so you're able to capture that more comprehensive view instead of like a more linear set of questions?
So Sabrina, this is Deborah. Yeah, I'll kind of back up what Cody was saying. We took the forms and put them into a spreadsheet and we're interviewing people. And then when they say those kinds of details, we add them into the spreadsheet. I haven't quite figured out how it's going to look on the worksheets yet, but it's been very helpful for us to just really listen to what they're saying, put it in a column somehow, and then kind of sort it out towards the end. My worksheets are very blank right now because of that reason. We're doing a lot of listening right now, like Ronnie said, calling people and trying to figure some of that stuff out. I'm hoping it all knits together at the end. That's my goal. It's my dream anyway.
Thank you, Deborah. Yeah. David Keys, you've got a few remarks here in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I was just mentioning, I think that sort of question about drilling in is a valuable one, and one that we found a little bit too. So we did a little bit of reframing at a meeting to put out that kind of question about what are you doing now that you'd like to continue or expand. Part of that is getting that sense of solutions, and then what aren't you able to offer now that you could? So things like that. I mean, that's a good point, I think, that Gina made about the telehealth, tele-law, whatever those kinds of facilities or the kinds of things that people could offer that additional support.
Justin, I think one of the things that is probably the most confusing out of all is when you're a community institution and they're filling out these documents and you're talking about a digital asset, they're not understanding yet that a digital asset could potentially be a service. A digital asset could potentially be, it's an asset, it's something that is, you're holding on to, it's infrastructure, it's something that is available and not necessarily a potential service or program or what you have available. So just reading that and it being worded in that manner, when people look at it, they're thinking this is for infrastructure providers. These are our ISPs. They're the ones who are putting the fiber on the ground. They're the ones who are putting towers up and those types of things. So if you're a community institution filling that form out, unless you specifically clarify your asset is your services that you're providing or a program or equipment that you have that you're providing to your clients or people that you're working with, that's where I think the disconnect could potentially happen. And we have people who are not filling these surveys out because they don't feel like they have assets. So I think, again, it's just part of selling the survey and educating the community people about what that means.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Ronnie. I think one thing, I know you've already sent these out and had some struggles, but I think if that is the experience, like one example, and just like as you're mentioning this, doing this for Grace Harbor, because I think that makes a lot of sense. In terms of the like what shows up when the form goes out, communicating that a little clearer to include like a digital equity service questionnaire or inventory or something like that, to get around that confusion around the asset terminology. And that's something, correct me if I'm wrong, Annie or Brooke, but if there are like minor edits like that, that's something that could be done by the teams as well. Okay.
Absolutely.
Hey, Marie, could you give a little more context to what kind of communication, engagement, information services you're thinking about? Marie cannot unmute at this time. I do want to ask Joyce Abbott from the State Library to say a few more words about a resource that's going to become available to everyone June 1st when they hand their study to the legislature on digital skills in Washington State. Okay. Maybe Joyce can't turn the mute off. Oh, there's a message. The host is not allowing unmuting. It looks like Kayla and Dustin are on the job.
Try
There.
now.
Okay. All right, so J Marie, maybe a little bit of context if you're able to unmute. Still getting the message. Okay. All right. Joyce, are you able to get off mute? The question was an opportunity to say a few more words about the resource that you're going to make available to all of us on June 1st when you turn your report into the legislature about digital skills in Washington State.
Okay, so here's what I can tell you. Equity and Education Coalition is doing a statewide digital skills survey. They are utilizing all of the institutions that they have been forming relationships with over the past decade to disseminate a series of surveys in multiple different forms, depending on who the audience is, to try to capture data about what are their goals right now for digital, for what they need to get done in the digital world. Where are they going for help? Where are they not going for help? What kind of resources are available to them and what kind of resources are not available to them? So we're hoping to have that information in a format that is helpful to the people in this meeting who are practitioners, who are looking for where there are gaps in services. I know that after the first meeting we've had, that there may be some gaps in the knowledge that we glean. There are some populations and areas of the state that there were roadblocks, but that's all good input anyway, because it's information that we can use moving forward to continue to try to engage now that we know what the roadblocks are. I will
Thank you for
check
the
in.
information.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Summer, thank you for that. I will check in with NCW Tech Alliance.
Okay. All right.
I see Cody has a hand up.
Yeah, hey Joyce, do you know how far that survey from EEC is going to reach into the rural populations? Because from what I understood, their reach into Eastern Washington isn't far outside of Spokane or the major cities.
Their the draft plan that they submitted and that we approved included statewide. So I need to, next time we meet with them, I can drill down and understand which institutions are the ones that are in areas that have historically not been covered. Do you have any specific counties, neighborhoods, districts, areas that you'd like
That's-
information on?
For the one meeting that I was in with them, they had no services in our county, which is Stephens County. So I don't know if this survey is going to be disseminated through the state libraries, which would come down to us or not. But I mean,
No, it's
Northeastern
being
Washington is historically forgot about, as are some other rural areas of this state. So I just want to make sure we're remembered and it's not just Puget Sound area.
Gotcha, understood. Quick question, do you have, I may follow up with you, because I think that Northeastern Washington may have been one of the areas in which there were some barriers to engagement, so I might follow up with you and ask you a little bit more about that.
Awesome, thank you.
This is Sonia with Poneray County BAT, and if there are obstacles to engagement, please do tap me. I'll put my email in the chat, because we have a pretty far-reaching network and would do anything to increase engagement, because we are also one of the forgotten children.
Thank you, Sonia. Okay, maybe we could ask folks to write something in the collaborative notes if they want to contribute to that engagement. Oh, some of it is just happening in the chat. That's a good place. Okay. Let's see, if we go to Nick Pappin right now, are we missing questions? I'm not sure if there were any that we would be missing. Okay, well, let's definitely, if there are additional questions, please put them in the chat and we'll go over them after Nick has talked with us about the map updates.
Yeah, so we have added some additional layers into the statewide maps. Since we've already built the county level maps, I don't think that we're going to re-implement down into the county level maps, but it will definitely be included in the statewide. Let me share my screen. So as always, to get to the maps, if you don't have the link, you can go to broadband.wsu.edu. And to get to the maps, you click here under maps, and there you go. And our video tutorial is still up there. But the new layer that we added is these FCC hex, block, and tract data sets. So just jumping over into Whitman County here real fast. As you can see, they all started off grayed out. That's because you need to zoom in just a little bit so that we don't load up tons of information. So let's see here. Unfortunately, I am living the rural broadband problem right now because I'm on the tail end of a 25.3 circuit.
Nick, do you want me to share and then you can just talk through it?
That would be awesome.
Cool. I'll be loaded up in a second here.
And while Dustin is doing that, I will copy and paste this into the chat. This is the link for everyone. Oh, Kayla already beat me to it. So if you could click on, let's click on that block. In fact, actually, let's just click them all on. This is the census block level data. If you select any one of the blocks, it will tell you how many BSLs are in that block, how many are served, and to what level they are served. Additionally, if you scroll down on this page, you can actually see the list of service providers for this block. This is a pretty rural part of Whitman County, so pretty much all licensed or licensed, unlicensed fixed wireless or satellite. Can you move up on or down south on the map a little bit? And just click, let's click in Pullman there. There are some transparent blocks here when a block is fully served, it will appear as largely transparent.
Oh, I went too far.
But you can still click on it and get that provider information by scrolling down and then looking at that. So additionally, with this data, can we actually back out just a touch, Dustin, and see if we can get the hex tiles to show up?
Oh, you want me to go in then, yeah?
It's right in if I remember correctly, it's right in between the blocks. There we go. So additionally, the hex tiles are also in here. Those have the exact same features. And you can overlay other data sets with this. So let's actually turn on let's scroll up there and go with the poverty or one of the poverty indexes. So unfortunately, there is a red on red issue here. We are going to work on deconflicting this data set a little bit with the other data sets. But as you can see, basically in areas where there is poverty and potentially a high underserved population, these are really good areas to be considered for projects and project areas under the BEAD NOFO So I think that that's, I think that I've hit all of the topics there. Dustin, did we have one more that I'm missing here?
No, this is good. I think the probably one good thing to note in case it hasn't been flagged yet is that the color scheme is kind of reversed here, where the darker are the more unserved or underserved areas.
Yes.
And the lighter, as you were saying earlier, the transparent ones are those that are more served. So, and on the poverty piece of this, when you overlay it, it's worth calling out here that in kind of elaborate on what Nick was saying around the project areas, the way that the BEAD NOFO will roll out is that there are two distributions of funding. There's the 20% that comes along with the approval of the initial proposal, and then the remaining 80% comes with the approval of the final proposal. And the way that the NOFO reads, it more or less requires that those projects funded with the first 20% prioritize applications and project areas in areas that the average population living above the 150% of the federal poverty line exceeds the national average. So like this would be an example where I would believe that to likely be the case, given the percentage of households living in poverty here is over 50%. So this would be an example of a project area or project areas that would potentially have that prioritization under the BEAD NOFO for being part of the initial distribution of funds, and then also potential prioritization down the line as well. So
Hey, Dustin, can I just do a quick clarification here? So as you're talking about the 150% versus 200% of poverty level, when you click here on the percent below poverty level, are you saying that that's showing up as the 150% or the 200%? Be good to label that maybe too. So.
Yeah. So the we're working on getting all of those different levels plugged in so that you can toggle between the different layers and have them layered. But the BEAD NOFO calls out 150% rather than 200%.
So right now, the percentage you have that you're using here is the 150.
This percent, this percentage is 100% right now, but so I was 100%. Making a little bit of a because since 50% are living under the federal poverty line, I kind of thought this might be a safe one to assume that the percentage living under 150% was about the national average as well. But we're getting that data plugged in here as well for that type of analysis.
And real fast, Dustin, actually, could you overlay that the percent below poverty layer and then hit one of the hex tiles? If you notice, it says 1 of 2 there. If you hit the little left arrow, it's one of those pro tips of using the interface. It'll jump you between the layers.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nick. But this should be hopefully helpful in lieu of necessarily having all of the infrastructure data from all of the providers and being able to identify potential project areas in your communities if that is something that has been a struggle at all.
Yeah,
So I wanted to make sure.
Deborah, in answer to your question, how do we use this new FCC data set and maps in our works over the next 5 weeks or for our executive report? So just what Dustin just said, if you are having trouble actually engaging with your providers, this could be a good data set to use basically in lieu of that. In lieu of that engagement, I would still encourage everybody to talk with the providers in your local areas, but this could just be used as another information layer. And
Yeah, and
actually, if you notice this data goes into Idaho, it's actually a national level data set. So,
and just to clarify here, because I do know a lot of ISPs that are engaging, they just have limitations around sharing a certain level of granularity of their data. So, so I guess just to clarify, if you're having trouble getting the data from the ISPs, without making any assumptions about the engagement.
all right. Sabrina, I think that's all that I had to discuss today.
Thank you very much, Nick. I do want to make, oh, yes.
So we did Dustin mentioned it really fast. We are also bringing in another 2 or 3 layers, which is going to be the 100% federal poverty level, the 150% federal poverty level, and the 200% federal poverty level. So, and Cody, your question, how often is the ACP subscriber by zip data updated? We are actually going to have a data dictionary that will describe the provenance of all of our data and when it was last updated. Likely, I think with that data set, it's about 6 months old.
And the data dictionary is almost ready. May 16th, in our workshop, we will have Washington, the Washington State Self-Sufficiency Standard, the researcher Annie Cooklick, she'll join our workshop, and she is very familiar with these different poverty measures, and we'll be talking about affordability measures as well.
Sabrina, are we able to submit questions for her beforehand? Because I know there were questions in the last meeting that were deferred to her. So I just would like her to be prepared so we have a better conversation and can knock some home runs out. So is there any way to do that?
Absolutely. I believe you have my email address.
Wonderful. I will send you some questions. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. All right. We are out of time for small groups, but thank you everyone for coming today. Please let us know if you have questions